Total Retail recently released its fourth annual Retail Technology Report, addressing retailers' spending behavior, as well as tracking trends in retail technology investments. To download your copy of the 2020 Retail Technology Report, go to mytotalretail.com/resources.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hi, I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail. I am joined today by Paige McFarling, who is the Director of Mission Advancement at 10,000 Villages. We're going to talk today a little bit about 10,000 Villages' nonprofit business and how it's working with its artisan partners during this particularly challenging time in the world. So thanks for joining me, Paige.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start by having you briefly tell our audience a little bit about 10,000 Villages.
Sure, my favorite topic. So 10,000 Villages is a nonprofit retail organization, a pioneer in fair trade. Our mission is to address enduring poverty, to break the cycle of generational poverty by bringing the handcrafts and stories of marginalized artisans from around the world to U.S. markets. It all started with one woman, our founder, Edna Ruth Byler, in 1946. She was volunteering with her husband in Puerto Rico and attended sewing classes. Some volunteers there in Puerto Rico were working with women who were struggling to feed their children, many of whom had been widowed, and they were teaching them to sew. But what our founder noticed is that the women, once they learned to sew, had no place to sell their products, or within their own little villages, it was, there was no broad enough market. So she decided to bring the women sewing and embroidery home to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and to share their stories and to sell the textiles to her friends and neighbors on their behalf. Sometimes, actually, I believe she started selling them directly from the back of her Chevy. And from that humble beginning, she pioneered what became a global fair trade movement and grew into 10,000 Villages, the nonprofit retailer that we are today. We have a nationwide network of 55 retail stores, e-commerce site, and wholesale channel that all sell fair trade, handcrafted products. 92% of our revenue is reinvested to perpetuate mission, and we invest in new orders from longtime artisan partners so they can expand their workshops, invest in their own communities, and reach even farther into marginalized populations to provide work. Less than 10% is applied to administrative and other costs. So we try to connect artisans with conscientious shoppers here in the U.S. And we offer ethically sourced gifts, homewares, fashion accessories, everything crafted by hand. And every product and every donation that people make generates sustainable income and impact. We partner with artisan groups who employ the deeply poor, often excluded from the global marketplace. Currently, we have about 75 partner groups, 20,000 makers in 30 countries, and they all earn a fair living wage and safe working conditions. And if you take those 20,000 makers and we estimate multiplying by a number of family members in the home, since they're often the sole income, we're touching about 100,000 people currently. But that means we're supporting families. They're able to build homes, save for the future. The children get health care. They stay healthy and go to school. Communities thrive. And those relationships are deep and enduring. Like some of them are beyond 30 years. So we like to say that 10,000 Villages does business differently. We kind of originated that putting people and planet first term that you hear so often and have been doing it since 1946.
Great. So that's kind of a great mission that you just kind of laid out. So how about your own background? Did you come from a nonprofit background, or, tell us a little bit about your, career background?
Sure. I actually have degrees in the sciences. I started out in industry, and after my kids were born, I wanted to be able to build a career that allowed them to be involved. And so I moved into nonprofit on the education side. I did a short stint in the performing arts and ultimately began my own consulting firm and partnered with 10,000 Villages, and they brought me on full time. And so my my claim to fame, no matter where I've been, tends to be building or reconstructing programs, particularly business development and fundraising programs, and helping those grow. So interestingly enough, 10,000 Villages has not had to rely on the fundraising side of their business model for most of its history. But because supply chains are long and economy has changed and retail has changed so rapidly, it's very important that we diversify our income streams. And so I am helping with fundraising and looking at how we can diversify revenue to support the retail function, which is our main income stream, of course.
So, as I mentioned in the introduction, obviously these are challenging times, across the globe, and as we all deal with the COVID-19 situation, health crisis. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact that's had on the 10,000 Villages business and specifically your supply chain?
Sure, of course. I have to tell you, I've been involved with great organizations, but the way this organization has addressed the COVID crisis, supporting artisans and staff, and just coming together has been beautiful, phenomenal. Like most American retailers, of course, we've closed our store network temporarily, even before most of the stay-at-home orders. We wanted to ensure the safety and health of our customers, our staff, the communities that we belong to. We've had to furlough some employees, move others to part-time, but we're maintaining their healthcare programs, providing regular support regarding unemployment, making sure we're filing for everything we can file for, like paycheck protection and SBA loans. But where we would otherwise be spreading our focus between all of our channels, retail, wholesale, and e-com, we've been focusing our efforts on the e-com channel so that we can do the best we can while this 55 stores are closed. Mother's Day is typically one of our busiest seasons, so we're really really focused at the moment, but our 30-day, we've been measuring this kind of since March 19th, e-com total is more than 300% greater than typical for this time of year. So that's there's some lessons learned and some things that are not sustainable, but boy, do we feel empowered by the growth in that income stream and in the team that's supporting it. Of course, e-com can't make up for the temporary loss of our store network. That's our main mechanism of carrying out our mission. And so we're of course, we've reached out with a large campaign, a large fundraising campaign that's much more focused than typically, so that we can help to ensure that we're paying artisans for their orders. We are committed to making sure that our artisans are paid for the orders that they had in process. I don't know if you know it, but 50% of any artisan order is paid upfront, interest-free, and then all of the orders are paid pre-export. And so we accept all of the risk, and all of our cash flow is tied up in order to make sure that the artisans have a safety net of financial security. So if we don't pay for orders, or we don't pay for a percentage of orders or something of the sort, it has a huge impact. So we are committed to raising the money, finding the money within loan structures, whatever we need to do to make sure that these April orders especially are made whole.
So, Paige, I want to talk a little bit about more about that. Can you talk about the steps that 10,000 Villages has taken to support its artisan partners, particularly those in developing countries who have been marginalized during this global health crisis?
Sure. You know, the thing that's important about fair trade, and I'm going to call it traditional fair trade as compared to agricultural, because I know about traditional handcraft fair trade, is that we, in those deep partnerships, work closely with our artisans all the time. So in between the time that an order is made and an order is paid for, there's a strong partnership and business development, product development, quality control. So we're in regular contact with our artisans and supporting them. As a matter of fact, we don't ever see defaults on those payments. Maybe 1/15 of 1% of an order has ever fallen through the cracks. So as the COVID-19 pandemic was unfolding, we've been hearing directly from those artisan partners on a regular basis. In countries with unreliable health care or no financial infrastructure of care in place, our marginalized makers are even more vulnerable. We're hearing accounts from our artisan partner groups that a pandemic of the, I'm sorry, I can't seem to say the word pandemic today, but a pandemic of this magnitude really is causing calamitous economical consequences. From India, we hear that, and many have used this example, but large groups of people are leaving cities and having to walk home. And they're walking home because all of the public transportation has been shut down. In Guatemala, much like in the United States, people rushed to buy groceries, but you have to remember the supply chains are long and the stores have run out of food because of fear and panic. And we hear that lockdowns have caused production in so many areas to suddenly grind to a halt. And so the workshops that we partner with have lost their source of income. We know that many retailers are canceling orders, paying partial orders, or leaving workers unpaid. Our partner groups are doing everything they can to support the makers, paying for the orders as they are asking us for payment to the artisan group. They're shifting gears to make personal protective equipment, masks, organizing food pantries, community meals, especially in India. Some fabulous stories of communities coming together. There's one self-help group we just communicated with our customers about this week. They made handmade masks just to give out for free in their own communities, but then the government learned about what they were doing and placed an order for 50,000 masks for police officers. So as we're working within our partnerships and our supply chains, they've learned so much about supporting business and surviving, that their ingenuity is kicking in, and good things are still happening.
So from some of the stories that you've heard and the experience with your artisans, I'm interested if you have any thoughts on how other retailers and brands can better support their product suppliers during this climate, current business climate, especially in, with supply chains so disrupted.
Sure, I'll do my best here. Reported in Forbes recently, for instance, many mainstream brands are canceling orders, delaying orders, refusing to pay for products that are made. Everybody has their own story. Fair trade is steadfast in the commitment to makers and artisan groups. The 10 principles of fair trade say you can't just stop. They also say that we work hand in hand with our partners and we understand what's going on in their businesses and help develop their businesses. So we're not just buying from marginalized artisans. We work with them. We make sure we know what their business needs, that they don't rely on us too much for income, and that they diversify their own partnerships and income. And so that makes us pretty critical support to our artisan partner groups. We're choosing to put artisans and employees first, to make sure that those commitments are maintained in whatever manner we have to do. And I guess I would encourage other retailers to do the same. The artisan makers are so close to that poverty level, they're just barely above it, that when we take away that income, it's not just a matter of filing for unemployment. It's a complete change in life and a step back, right back into the poverty that they were avoiding. So for us, that means we're increasing our focus on our e-com channel. We are equipping our store staff with lots of projects, those who are not furloughed, so that when we are ready to open, we can hit the ground running. We still continue to share stories of our artisan partners to keep customers connected and informed. We've really been working to ensure that we can have whatever income we have and redirect whatever loans we have to cover this current set of orders. I think I've shared this with you, but when we take on all of that financial risk, it is a safety net. And I want everybody to understand that when you take away the payment for an order, you've taken away what sustains them. And so we are working to raise about $800,000 to help fulfill artisan order payments during the crisis. That's not to say we'll raise every dollar, but find the money, help support them.
You mentioned the growth in the D2C business over the last month or so. Has there been challenges in terms of fulfilling those orders since it spiked so much?
You know, I wouldn't say that the challenges are insurmountable. We are seeing e-com levels similar to holiday. And so rather than furloughing our warehouse staff, we've made sure that they are safe and provided lots of personal protective equipment and social distancing. But we are working to fill those orders on a regular basis. And so the supply is there. We will start to see a supply problem, a merchandise problem, if this continues. But for now, our warehouse is doing an amazing job of ensuring all of the orders are fulfilled.
And the artisans that you work with, do they primarily only work with 10,000 Villages, or do they have other distribution channels that they're working with?
You know, it depends across so many different countries and so many different types of artisan partners and handcrafts. Some of them, I would say that most of them rely on us for 50% or less of their income. There are a few small organizations for whom we are a large part of their budget. But as I mentioned, as part of our artisan development partnership, we try to ensure that they can be stable and are diversifying their income. But yes, we're significant sources of income for 75 artisan partner groups.
And then lastly, Paige, can you talk about why it's important for retailers and brands to embrace social responsibility across their organizations? And kind of a second part to that is, how will that practice potentially impact their future growth prospects?
Sure. You know, the global economy puts enormous pressure on producers all over the world to do things faster, to do them cheaper. And the crisis actually shines a light on the fragility of the system that's based on buyers whittling down prices, paid to people who make consumer goods, and the way that endangers livelihoods. Treating workers with dignity and respect, paying them fairly and on time, insisting that they have safe working conditions where they work. It's just the right thing to do. Beyond that, consumers, especially millennial and Gen Z consumers, they've been showing increased interest in purpose-driven brands. We've got some great data coming out of these last 30 days and the responses that we're seeing. But as the entire world, I guess, weathers this crisis together, consumers will be watching brands more closely than ever, observing how they treat producers, how they treat their employees, how they choose to impact and support community. So I think that brands provide more than just product. Those are going to be the ones that have long-term trust and value when they embrace social responsibility and just kind of do the right thing. It makes a difference, and it will continue to make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I want to take this opportunity to thank Paige McFarling of 10,000 Villages for joining me today and telling us a little bit about the virtuous work they're doing to help artisans around the world. Thanks for joining me, Paige.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.
Total Retail recently released its 4th annual Retail Technology Report, addressing retailers' spending behavior, as well as tracking trends in retail technology investments. To create the report, Total Retail surveyed its audience of retail executives to better understand their current usage of technology, future technology needs and wants, and their processes within their organizations for technology purchases. To download your copy of the 2020 Retail Technology Report, go to mytotalretail.com/resources.